Okay, anyways, yeah, so I'll start. You pick up.
And today we'll be talking about
You
file
want to
sharing.
do today what we're talking about, or you want me to do today what we're talking
I think it just flows better if I say it.
about? Okay, that's fine. All right, are you good to go?
He's been good. He's been
No, I'm
recording.
just asking
He's
you.
oh,
Are you good to go?
I thought we were already done with that conversation, but yes,
Okay. All right. Did I already ask you?
yes.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Tech Tips. My name is Sean Roop.
And I'm Chris Tripp, and we're with neoRhino IT Solutions, and today we'll be talking about file sharing.
Absolutely.
So, Sean, what are some types of file sharing?
So we'll start with the basics, right? Email. You can send the file via email.
Oh, yes, that's very true. So with emails, I guess I know of some limitations that emails could produce, like you have a limit of 50 megs if you're running Office 365, and certain other Exchange environments, they have a limit on the size of file that you can send, and then also the type of file that you can send. So if you're trying to send like an email with a .exe file,
Right.
you may get a bounce back because that .exe file is marked as something that's not allowed to go through your Exchange server, and so then you would get a bounce back saying, hey, we can't send this email because this file extension has been blocked. You speak to your administrator, or in probably the best practice way, put it on a share drive and have someone access it through that rather than trying to email them a exe file, because those are practically 99% usually a virus of some kind.
And not always will it be blocked by your service provider for your mail either. Sometimes it'll be blocked by your antivirus. It'll be blocked
That's true.
It'll be blocked by your email filters and
Right.
and devices like that as well. So
Awesome.
and every email provider has such a different set of rules for what you can and can't send.
And they're all configurable. Well,
Yeah,
most
most
of
of
them.
them
Most
are
of them are
configurable,
configurable.
So, all right. So that covers emails. What else you got?
So there's FTP. It's a file transfer protocol, and basically it's ran off of programs like FileZilla, and there's a few others out there, but FileZilla is probably the top one that's able to actually go over FTP. You can also set up your servers to be an FTP server, and so then you just have it's a different protocol or port that's being used to share a file, and you basically just access the file system through a different port over the network.
Yeah. Similarly, we have SFTP, which is just a more secure version of FTP.
Yeah.
And it basically could do and be set up the exact same way as FTP. So you have your FileZilla. WinSCP is another really popular
WinSCP, yes, indeed.
application to use. CyberDuck is another big one that's out
Yeah,
there.
yeah, and that one seems to have a lot of capabilities. I know we were looking that one up, and it was all over the place. Every time we were like, hey, what's this way of file sharing? CyberDuck.
Right.
Interesting.
And it even does, CyberDuck does WebDAV too,
Yeah, WebDAV.
which is another protocol for
File sharing.
file sharing. Yes.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, and then outside of those protocols, you also have things like P2Ps or peer-to-peers. So like your
Yeah,
Skype,
like IM and Skype, yeah.
Yeah. Even to an extent, even P2P applications. So yeah. Would fit
So
in.
after peer-to-peer, we have local file storage and also NAS devices. So basically, you can set up a server with a lot of hard drives and hopefully set up in a RAID, and that way your information's mirrored or backed up in some form or fashion, recoverable and also redundant.
Yeah.
So basically, you set that up, and then you can, in Windows operating systems, you can literally right-click a file, go to the properties, and share that file, and then set the permissions if you have an Active Directory domain to make sure only certain people access the file, and preferably certain groups are the ones who have access to the files. That way, whenever you're playing around in AD, you just add
Right.
people to groups to grant them access to everything.
Absolutely. And then when we get into NAS devices, devices come in such a wide variety and range. You can get a small Western Digital makes a small NAS device that a small business can purchase and use to store their files on. If you don't have a server or something like that, that could be a
Right.
good way to locally store your files.
Right.
And of course, you're going to want to have some sort of
Now,
backup solution for that. But
These files are mainly documents on the
documents,
NAS.
but it could really be, you can really store anything on a NAS device. It doesn't have to be documents.
True. I think the best practices, though, I think is databases should go on your server, and then anything else could really go on a NAS.
Right, yeah, or as long as you have the database control program installed on a server, or something that can communicate with that NAS that can handle the back and forth of that database.
Yes, sir.
But you can even get, you have NASs that will accept, hundreds of drives. That can just store teraflops of data for a network that requires something that large that's there. And usually that's going to require another piece, usually a server or something to help manage accessing and permissions for those files on there, because it's really just going to be a large storage unit. But they have infinite capabilities almost, so it's pretty interesting.
Let's not say infinite. They can't fly yet.
Almost. Sometimes, I don't know, you hear it sometimes when you plug them in, it sounds like
they're about to take off sometimes.
Sure,
yeah, that's just your fan controller going out. That's something to look into as well. So other than NAS drives or devices, we have cloud services. Can you let me know some of the cloud services that are available?
Absolutely, yeah. So one of the big ones, SharePoint and OneDrive, right? They kind of come hand in hand. SharePoint's your back end solution for storing your files and managing your permissions and your file structures. And OneDrive typically is used to access those files, although they can be used separately from one another as well. But typically you'll use that to access make it easy to access your SharePoint drive.
And now that's from the cloud, so that's accessible from not just your office, but anywhere, as long as if you have a internet connection.
Absolutely, yeah. So moving on, we also have DropBox. That's another really big popular one.
That's a well-known one.
And
your Google Drive's another one too.
Google Drive, yeah, absolutely. There's some Amazon S3 has their file storage. And
then they have Box, not the DropBox. So this is a box that hasn't been dropped, but Anchor Box. Anchor Box. Yeah. Is it called Anchor Box?
I'm sorry.
Or is it just Anchor?
I think it's just Anchor.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we also have Anchor, which is a smaller, less known, but it's very similar to a Dropbox, but more secure.
Right. So everything else on my list, we have also the Apple iCloud. That's one that a lot of people probably use, especially if you have an iPhone or a Macintosh computer. A lot of the times, I think now you just sign in and you can have everything automatically saved to the cloud as long as if you have purchased enough storage on their system. So that's really convenient because every time you get a new phone or a new device, you just log in and say, hey, download all my stuff again.
Right, and these cloud solutions are really interesting because a lot of times when you want to share a file out to somebody that isn't within, if they don't have or if they're not signed up for that cloud service, you can usually send them a link and offer them, permissions at whatever level you want to grant them.
Right.
They can click on that link and it'll just pull the file up on their end.
Which is extremely helpful.
Yeah, it's very, very useful. So there's definitely lots of ways to do that for
a lot of the times, though, those links, they'll require you to make a login for that service, right? Like a minimum amount. You don't have to subscribe to anything, but you would I know in Microsoft's world, you send out a link for SharePoint. Absolutely. If someone doesn't have a Microsoft account, you have to make one, and then you can access the files.
Absolutely, yeah. But when it comes to Dropbox, you can grant ambiguous permissions to
Dropbox is definitely set up that way. Other than that, I have just a couple mentions. FileCloud, Ignite, and ShareFile are the last three that I have, just as a list of things options that you have as for file sharing. And so basically all these are cloud services. You're saving everything into the cloud, so you're saving it into a database that's off-site. It is more secure that way because the databases are backing up all your information and they're also responsible for it. So if you need any kind of technical support, you can always call them and then get assistance. That's true.
With whatever service.
Always pay for services if you're running a business at least.
Yeah, absolutely. But working with a cloud solution, you have the same caveats that you do with any other cloud solution. So if you lose internet connectivity, you lose access to your files, but then you can go elsewhere. If you can go to
you can hop into a Starbucks, connect to the Wi-Fi, and there you go. Although
be careful with hopping on those open networks sometimes. But,
Which in that case, you can always get a VPN connection to.
Absolutely, or if you use something
secure
like
yourself.
SharePoint and OneDrive, it's all encrypted up to your machine. Anyway,
Exactly.
so
Unless you're logging in with your Microsoft account or a Microsoft account that has access to those files or that folder, then nobody can access that other than Microsoft themselves.
And then, the only other caveat I'd say is if you're working on large files over a cloud solution like that,
Transfers,
bandwidth.
the transfer
Bandwidth is
would
going to be a
require
big thing. So
a lot of bandwidth. You save a
if you
50
have
gig file, it may
50
take you a few
gig
hours.
Excel file.
Oof.
It's,
Don't have 50 gig Excel files.
Never have 50 gig
When you
Excel
open it, go make yourself some coffee, go take a nap,
Make a sandwich.
make a sandwich after your nap,
Yeah.
and then it may be done. Opening.
But yeah, so those are just kind of some of the basics when it comes to file sharing.
Yep.
If you guys have any questions or comments, feel
Or if
free.
y'all want to add anything, if y'all have any other services that y'all know of that y'all want to just throw in the comments, go ahead. We are more than happy, and we welcome y'all's knowledge. We like to learn as much as possible.
Absolutely. Not only can you drop those bits of information in the comments, but you can also go to our website, neoRhino.com/tech tips. And you can fill out a form there and include any extra information or any questions that you'd like to have answered.
Indubitably.
So thank you all again for joining us for another episode of Tech Tips.
I'm Chris Tripp.
I'm Sean Roop.
Have a good one.